a group of 12 energetic boys aged 11 to 16 had just finished a Saturday morning practice. Led by their 25-year-old assistant coach, Tham Luang, they decided to take a quick trip into the Tham Luang cave system. It was a local tradition, a way to celebrate a birthday and test their bravery. They left their bicycles and soccer cleats at the entrance. They carried only flashlights and a few snacks. They didn't tell their parents exactly where they were going because they expected to be back by sunset. They walked past the warning signs that cautioned against entering the cave during the monsoon season. After all, the heavy rains weren't supposed to start for another month. But the mountain had other plans. While the boys were deep inside, over 2 miles from the entrance, a freak, unseasonable downpour hit the region. Millions of gallons of water surged down the mountainside, funneled into the limestone cracks, and roared into the cave. Within an hour, the exit was sealed. The wild boars were no longer explorers, they were prisoners of the earth. When the boys didn't show up for the birthday party that evening, the panic began. By midnight, parents had gathered at the cave entrance, finding only those 12 abandoned bicycles as proof their children were inside. The Thai Navy SEALs were called in immediately, but even these elite warriors were staggered by what they found. The cave hadn't just flooded, it had transformed. The water was the color of chocolate milk, filled with silt and debris that made visibility zero. The current was so violent it was like trying to swim up a waterfall in total darkness. For the first few days, the mission was a chaotic struggle against nature. Pumps were brought in to drain the cave, but for every gallon they pumped out, the monsoon poured 2 more back in. The world began to watch. Volunteers from the UK, the US, Australia, and China started to arrive. But as the days turned into a week, the hope began to flicker. No one had heard a sound from the boys. No signs of life had been found. Most experts, behind closed doors, were preparing the families for the recovery of bodies, not a rescue. On day 9, 2 of the world's most experienced cave divers, Rick Stanton and John Volanthen from the UK, pushed further than anyone else had dared. They were navigating Sump 3, a section of the cave completely submerged in water. This wasn't like ocean diving. This was technical diving, navigating jagged rocks, tangled guide wires, and narrow pinch points, where they had to take off their oxygen tanks just to squeeze through. They were nearly at their turnaround point, the moment where they would have to head back or risk running out of air. Then, John Volanthen smelled it. In a world of cold water and wet stone, he smelled the faint, unmistakable scent of humans. They surfaced in a small, muddy air pocket known as Chamber 9. John shone his light onto a mud bank, and then he saw them. 13 pairs of eyes, glowing in the dark. The boys were thin, huddled together, but they were alive. In the famous footage that would soon go viral, John's calm British voice asks, "How many of you?" And a boy's voice cracks as he replies, 13 \. It was a miracle that stopped the world. But as the divers looked around that small, damp chamber, the reality set in. Finding them was a miracle. Getting them out was going to be an impossibility. The boys were 2.5 miles from the entrance. Between them and safety lay several kilometers of flooded tunnels. Some of these boys couldn't even swim, let alone use complex scuba gear. The technical challenge was horrifying. In some sections, the sumps were so narrow that a diver couldn't even see his own hands. If a child panicked underwater, he would thrash, kick up silt, and likely drown both himself and the diver trying to save him. The Thai government and international experts debated 3 options. The first, the wait. Leave the boys in the cave for 4 months until the monsoon season ended. They would send in food and a doctor. But the mountain was unstable, and the oxygen levels in Chamber 9 were dropping from the normal 21% to a dangerous 15%. They were literally suffocating in their own air. The second, the drill. Drill a shaft from the top of the mountain. But the mountain was 3,000 feet of solid limestone. They didn't know the boys' exact coordinates, and a single mistake could cause a cave-in. The third, the dive. The most dangerous option. Take the boys out through the water. The decision was forced by the weather. A massive storm was coming that would flood the entire cave for months. It was now or never. The plan they settled on was so radical that many officials refused to sign off on it at first. They decided to sedate the children. They brought in Dr. Richard Harris, an Australian diver and anesthesiologist. The plan was this. Each boy would be given a cocktail of Xanax to calm them, atropine to dry up their saliva so they wouldn't choke, and a heavy dose of ketamine to knock them unconscious. They would then be fitted with a full-face silicone mask that would provide a constant flow of positive pressure oxygen. Essentially, the divers wouldn't be guiding the boys out. They would be shipping them out like human cargo. Each diver would have a boy tethered to them, holding the boy's tank against their chest, navigating the pitch-black tunnels by feel. The risk was 100%. If a boy woke up mid-dive, he would panic and die. If his mask leaked, he would drown without a sound. Dr. Harris himself believed there was a 0% chance that all 13 would survive the journey. On July 8th, the rescue began. The world's media stood outside in the rain, silenced. The divers went in. Imagine the sensation, a diver in total darkness, underwater, feeling the limp body of a child tucked under his arm. Every few hundred yards, they would reach an air pocket where a staging team of Navy SEALs was waiting. They would lift the boy out of the water, check his pulse, and, if he was starting to wake up, Dr. Harris or his team would administer another shot of ketamine directly through the wet suit. It was a conveyor belt of human lives. It took 3 days. On the first day, 4 boys were brought out. On the second day, 4 more. The world held its breath. On the final day, the last 4 boys and their coach were extracted. The final wild boar left the cave just as the massive monsoon pumps failed, and the cave began to flood completely once again. They had made it out by a margin of minutes. Against every law of probability, all 13 were saved. It wasn't without cost. Saman Kunin, a former Thai Navy SEAL who had volunteered for the mission, lost his life while placing oxygen tanks along the rescue route. He is remembered as a hero who gave his breath so the boys could have theirs. The Tham Luang rescue wasn't just a feat of engineering or diving. It was a feat of human unity. Thousands of people from dozens of countries worked as one. Today, the boys of the Wild Boar soccer team are young men. Their coach, Ekapal, who kept them calm for 9 days through meditation and by giving them his share of the food, is still a leader in his community. When we look at stories like this, we often focus on the how. How did they dive that far? How did the sedation work? But the real question is why? Why did the world stop for 18 days for 13 strangers? Because the story of Tham Luang reminds us that no matter how deep the darkness or how high the water rises, there is no such thing as an impossible rescue when we refuse to give up on each other. If you found this story incredible, you need to check out our deep dive into the Harrison O'Keefe story, another man who survived the impossible deep beneath the ocean. What do you think was the most heroic part of this mission? Was it the divers who went into the dark, the doctor who took the ultimate medical risk, or the coach who kept those boys alive for 9 days? Let's discuss in the comments below.